Welcome back to The Explainer. So let's just jump right into this. You know that slight feeling of disconnect you might get during days meant for national mourning? Well, today we're analyzing a lecture that throws a total paradigm shift at us. We are looking at a radical rethinking of how we honor fallen heroes. It literally asks us to step away from decades of established tradition and look at a completely different perspective on what it actually means to respect sacrifice.
Which leads us to ask, is mourning really the only way to remember the fallen? It's a pretty heavy question, right? But the source material we're exploring today argues that, honestly, our traditional approach to memorialization might actually be flawed. It points out that as time marches on, a lot of us, especially younger generations who are just hustling, trying to survive the immense pressures of modern daily life, we feel this growing distance from these historical events. Memorial days end up feeling super heavy and dark, or let's be real, they just become another day off work without a second thought given to what the day even means.
So the source sets up this really fascinating contrast. On one hand, you have the traditional view. It's characterized by a heavy, dark atmosphere, a strict sense of obligation, and that growing disconnect with the youth. The lecturer makes the observation that we've essentially been mourning the exact same way for decades. We're just going through the motions of grief. But then it presents this proposed view. The speaker suggests that memorialization should actually be joyful. It should be energetic. It frames these days as a source of immense pride, a chance to share a vibrant life together and celebrate the very things those historical sacrifices actually allowed us to build.
And the speaker makes a really pragmatic argument here. They state that a simple hot dog or a pre-read tribute doesn't automatically create true reward. Think about it. Just holding a standard ceremony, setting up a memorial altar, reading a speech someone else wrote, or offering some basic, customary food, the text argues that this doesn't automatically grant peace to the spirits of the fallen. If those heroes sacrificed themselves for the betterment of the nation, then going through a simple, rigid ritual just doesn't give them that ultimate reward they were hoping for. The lecture argues it requires something way more active and alive from us.
All right, let's look at Section 1, the shift to joy, a new form of reverence.
This is where the lecture drops its core proposition. The idea is that the absolute most profound way to honor the dead isn't through our continued sorrow. It's actually through the active, vibrant joy of the living. The speaker states, when we are truly joyful, this energy liberates the spirits. And the logic behind this claim is actually pretty straightforward when you break it down. Those who gave their lives did so to guarantee a better, happier future for the generations that came after them. So the source argues that when we, the descendants, actually live happily and thrive, well, that serves as the ultimate validation of their sacrifice. Our joy is essentially the living proof that what they did wasn't in vain.
Moving on to Section 2, Understanding Quantum Energy.
Now, a quick heads up for the focused learners out there. The speaker uses the term quantum energy in a highly unique, spiritual, and philosophical context here. We're not talking about traditional subatomic physics today. Instead, this is a framework for understanding human emotional output. Within this specific philosophy, quantum energy is defined as the unseen energy generated by human life, action, and emotion. And the lecture claims this energy is totally capable of transcending physical space and time to interact with the spiritual realm. The speaker really emphasizes that when human beings experience genuine joy, it creates this incredibly powerful, high-quality energy that just expands outward into the environment.
The text actually categorizes how this energy supposedly works based on our emotional states. When your emotional state is joyful and positive, you produce what it calls clear or high-quality energy. And according to the text, this specific positive energy is what actually comforts and liberates the spirits of the fallen. On the flip side, if your emotional state is depressed or gloomy, you're producing dark or turbulent energy. The speaker specifically warns that this low-grade energy doesn't help the fallen at all. In fact, it attracts negative, unsettled entities. So the entire focus here is on the actual quality of emotion we bring to these moments.
Okay, that brings us to Section 3, Reimagining Memorial Visits.
So how do we actually apply this philosophy in the real world? Well, the lecture shifts from these abstract concepts to highly practical, physical actions. It specifically targets the month of June, which is recognized as the month of defense in South Korea. To employ all this, the source material maps out a very specific chronological itinerary for paying respects. Step 1 is to visit the UN Memorial Cemetery in Busan, ideally during that lead up to Memorial Day, so between June 1st and June 6th. Step 2 is heading to the major national cemeteries, like the ones in Seoul or Daejeon. And finally, Step 3 involves visiting historical shrines dedicated to great figures, like Admiral Lee Sun-sin.
But here's the real kicker. What do you actually do when you arrive? The lecture details a massive departure from tradition. You're encouraged to treat these hallowed grounds more like a public park. When you enter, you just offer a brief, silent tribute in your mind. There is absolutely no need for a massive, super somber display. In fact, you're encouraged to bring and share simple food, like kimbap, with your family or your community right there. The ultimate goal is to radiate positive, joyful energy. By just relaxing and enjoying yourselves in these spaces, the lecture says you are actively sharing the merit of living well with the very spirits who made that life possible. It's a total game changer.
However, we do need to highlight a very surprising and super specific rule from the text. It comes with a warning. Do not visit if your energy is dark or depressed. The speaker's logic here loops right back to that energy categorization we reviewed a minute ago. Like attracts like. If you go to a cemetery while you're harboring dark, turbulent energy, the lecture warns that you're just going to attract unsettled spirits, which could actually negatively impact your own life. So if you aren't in a clear, positive state of mind, the strict advice from the source is simply to sit it out. Don't go at all.
Which leads us perfectly to a final, really challenging quote from the text. It says, "Stop holding ceremonies just to say we did. It's time for action." The source is practically begging us to move beyond this passive, routine mourning. It's asking people to step up, take ownership of the freedom they've been given, and to actually use it to create genuine happiness. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought to chew on. If the ultimate goal of sacrifice is the prosperity of future generations, could it be that actively living a joyful, vibrant life is literally the highest, most profound form of respect we could ever offer?